Welcome back, everybody. Obamacare, the bill, was met with outrage, town halls, and a very vocal Tea Party. One of those voices was and still is Governor Sarah Palin, and we happily welcome the governor back to the Five. Governor, thanks for joining us today on a very important day. In the aftermath of the Supreme Court decision to uphold Obamacare as a tax, you know, the conservatives, the voices are split. Charles Krauthammer and Eric Erickson on one side are saying the decision might be good for the country if it gets Romney elected, while our mutual friend, Mark Levin, calling Judge Roberts' decision absolutely lawless and shredding the Constitution. Governor, where do you fall in this map?
Well, you know, I can see both sides of this, why folks are personally outraged at Chief Justice Roberts for the decision he made, kind of looking at the situation as a glass being half empty, and those looking at it as half full are saying, well, right on, Supreme Court, thank you for concluding that this is a tax, despite what Obama had promised, that it's not a tax, and now Obama is conflicting himself by saying, thank you, Supreme Court, for calling this a tax, even though I just said it's not a tax. But the glass being half full now, I think, tells us that, good, it's Supreme Court, you put it back in our hands, the people's hands, the representatives of the people in Congress. Now we get to decide, do we want to enact this tax or can we rescind this tax? Congress has the power to rescind it. Let's get in there in July after the recess and start voting on rescinding the tax that would fund Obamacare.
So it sounds, Governor, like you see this as something that could be perhaps produce some momentum and be kind of a stepping off point for the Republicans, for the conservatives to kind of rally support and get Romney's campaign going.
Well, absolutely, because it's just another example of President Obama lying to the people, deceiving the people, Nancy Pelosi deceiving the people, and Harry Reid, and trying to, through this inundation of conflicting bureaucratic legislative information, pages and pages that nobody actually read and then they voted on and rammed it down America's throats. It's another example of government run amok and this huge overreach that is an unaffordable, ill-advised, inefficient new program that was supposed to help with health care challenges and that actually causes more problems with the health care situation. It's another example.
Governor, the deception, does that include the death panels, which were never real, that you said were in that bill?
Oh, it's in there. There's a faceless bureaucratic panel, and it's the acronym is the IPAB, and the IPAB, what that is, will be a board that will tell you, Bob, whether your level of productivity in society is worthy of receiving the ration care that will be the result of Obamacare. Consider
if that
this,
was the
Bob,
case, I'd be out by the time I'm 58.
It defies all economic and common sense to ever consider that health care won't be rationed when, obviously, with more and more enrollees in the program and fewer and fewer services being provided because it will be so inefficient and expensive and bureaucratic, of course, health care in a socialized system, which this will become, it will be rationed.
Governor, way to put Bob in his place. Nicely done. He's speechless. Good point. To your point, the Daily Mail in the UK reported that 130,000 elderly patients are euthanized prematurely because they don't have enough room for beds, which goes to your point. Inevitably, this is what happens. But I want to go to what you said before about Obama lying to the American people. Can someone lie if they didn't know what they were actually talking about or doing?
Okay, that's a good point. The semantics here, we could debate. But, you know, the only promise I think that Obama has actually kept to the American people is that he would fundamentally transform America, and that's what he's done. But, you know, from cutting the deficits in half to now increasing hugely deficits and running up America's debt to this really enormous, outrageous number that we're looking at today, nearly $16 trillion, from one promise after another to the wars that we are in today, though he said we would be out of those wars by now and we would be closing Gitmo, and one example after another. The only promise I can think of that he's kept is that he would transform America, and we're becoming something that previously we wouldn't fathom, we couldn't recognize.
Hey, Governor, it's Andrea Tanteros. How are you? Thanks for being with us. When you started, you mentioned that a lot of conservatives are unhappy and Republicans are unhappy with Justice Roberts' decision. And a lot of these conservatives have been criticizing Justice Roberts. Michael Savage, who's a conservative talk show host, actually went after him and said, I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to hear anywhere else. He suffered from epileptic seizures, and he went on to assert that somehow maybe his epilepsy caused the decision, which I think is a gross political attack on the court.
Savage is an idiot.
Hold on, Bob, please. And President Obama went after the courts, too, right before this ruling. And you came out and you said that he doesn't have common sense and he was trying to embarrass the court. So should conservatives maybe be consistent, not you, but other conservatives, in not criticizing the court?
Just conservatives need to keep in mind that it does no good to put your faith in one human being. Man is fallible, and especially in this political arena that all these characters are that we're talking about, don't put your faith in a person because they will disappoint. And, you know, I've learned after a couple of decades in politics now from the local, state, and national level, I will never put my faith in a person or I will be disappointed and then, you know, personally take it out on them. Instead, you know, put your faith in their ideas and what they stand for, their record, their reputation,
but do you think it's wrong for
person.
conservatives and Republicans to attack the court on this decision, the same conservatives and Republicans that went after President Obama for attacking the court?
No, I think that's fair play because, you know, the other side, Andrea, would never stop attacking the court or individual justices based on decisions made. And, you know, it's kind of the nature of the beast. But, no, you know, that's everybody's right to express their opinion on what this, especially this individual decision has resulted in, and that is, again, you look at it as the glass being half full or half empty, either that this is treachery, this is horrible, that this decision that Obamacare is constitutional, or you look at it as, well, okay, Supreme Court just contradicted what the president promised us, but now at least it's back in our hands and we have control over the outcome now of future decisions on Obamacare.
Let me just ask you a question. First of all, the quote, a psychopath like Michael Savage's evidence is beyond me. But leaving that aside, and also there were Bush's wars you're talking about, but leaving that aside, Mitt Romney's going to be your nominee. Mitt Romney's the one who came up with the first, and with this whole bill was based after, and how in the world is he going to be able to come out against the mandate? When he signed a bill about the mandate, he congratulated the mandate. He said the mandate was essential to make it work. This guy is in a real corner, and he can't get out of it.
Well, you know, I don't like government mandates on any level, be it the local, the state, or the federal level. But if you listen to Romney's rationale thus far, it's been about the 10th Amendment, of course, that states have the right to deal with the economic and other problems within their states according to their leadership's priorities. And he's invoked that, the 10th Amendment, over and over again. And that's how, if it's going to be explained away, it will be explained.
Explained away is right.
Governor, there's been a lot of speculation as, you know, to the reasoning, the rationale behind why Chief Justice John Roberts, in fact, you know, wrote that opinion, that he went kind of out on a limb, extended himself to try and rewrite the law, which, as you know from the president, said it wasn't a tax right from the beginning, to do that. Some people feel it was a form of judicial activism and not appropriate for the U.S. Supreme Court to go that far out. What do you think?
You know, I don't know what his reasoning has been, and I haven't had the time over these last 24 hours to really dig in there and try to figure out what was he thinking. I'm just, you know, taking everything at face value and from what I've read. But, you know, I go back again to, well, the leadership, the elected leadership in our nation, from Pelosi and Reid to Obama, telling us that this wasn't a tax, and then the media, thus far at least, too many of them letting Obama get away with telling us that it wasn't a tax. Here, as you pointed out, George Stephanopoulos in September of '09 having that interview with President Obama where he tried to school George. He got in his face and he said, this isn't a tax. What are you talking about? Quit spinning this, George. Well, I expect George to step up and say, President Obama, you were wrong then, or you lied to me, meaning you lied to the people of America. Are you going to correct yourself now? And if he's going to be, then, you know, that would be a respectful step of our president.
George Stephanopoulos, don't hold your breath.
Guys, hold on, Governor. We only have about 30 seconds, 40 seconds, so we have a hard break. We wanted to ask you this question, given the news yesterday about Eric Holder's contempt of Congress charge. 3 options now: civilly, try him civilly, try him criminally, or the Sergeant at Arms of the House actually arresting the man. Governor, what should they do?
Well, I know they won't be so dramatic as to actually arrest him, but they need to pursue the information that explains even the foundation of Fast and Furious. Why the heck did anybody think that allowing guns to walk into these dangerous areas that would result in the death of Brian Terry and his family deserving information? What's the foundation of all of it? Much less what was Holder's involvement in it. All that lack of transparency that is being made manifest today in the Obama administration by hiding all this information, it's contemptuous, and it's unfair to the American people. Most importantly, at this point, I think it is unfair to Brian Terry's family and for those Democrats who have walked out on the vote. They walked out on an American patriotic family, and I think that that was just an atrocious act on their part.
Governor Palin, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks, Governor.
Thank you all so much.
Have a great weekend.